Thank you very much, Meghna, for that. A very warm welcome to Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh, who has been at the forefront of managing India's inflation. Of course, RBI plays a very proactive role in this, but in terms of policy measures that we've seen in the last 1 year, in terms of import bans coming in, introduction of Bharat Dal, Bharat Atta, you name it, Mr. Singh has been at the forefront of this. And I also want to say that as Secretary of Consumer Affairs, he has really revamped the Consumer Affairs Ministry and has brought in a lot of measures that have empowered consumers. There's a consumer helpline that has started, and personally, I was very delighted to hear that, and I've also called on that helpline. So can we have a big round of applause and a very warm welcome to Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh. Mr. Singh, I want to begin by asking you, inflation, I remember 10 years ago, India was facing inflation in double digits. Now we're looking at inflation coming down to finally at 4%, which is pretty much what RBI's medium-term target is. So from double digits to now inflation between 4%, 5%, 6%, and so on, it's been a long journey. As someone who's constantly monitoring this, and we know that inflation is not an economic issue, it's an issue that impacts everybody. Higher prices impacts people in power, it impacts us as citizens, it's a very political issue. So how do you monitor inflation in a country like India, which is so vast and so diverse? Just help us understand that a bit.
Thank you. I feel very important when you ask that. So you're right, it's a humongous task, and we monitor it from across the country. We used to monitor from about 150 odd centers, but last year we realized that unless you collect from all corners and all geographies within the country, you will not be able to get a real picture of how the prices are behaving in the country. So how it works, we have 550 points across the country, and at every day around this time, I get a report on my phone that how the prices of 22 essential commodities are behaving in these 550 points. We have a very, I can call it high-tech dashboard, and we can zero on to a district and to a commodity and see how the prices have, let's say, of rice have behaved in Ranchi for last 5 years, or how the prices of coconut oil have behaved in Kozhikode for last 3 weeks. So we can do all that. So it's 22 commodities, and each place, each location, 3 points. So I have 22 into 3 into 550 data points that are reported every day through mobile app, and we share it in the ministry. And by the way, we are the only source of this primary data, and entities from the research bodies to Reserve Bank of India to everyone else relies on that, and we realize the importance of that. That is why there are many checks and balances at the point of entry of data, at the middleware level, and at the software that we run, so that there are no corrections, there are no deviations, and it's all being reported in a nice way. Now, when we watch...
This is wholesale prices or consumer prices?
This is retail and consumer wholesale. So consumer wholesale has to be understood differently from the mandi wholesale, because for us, wholesale is from where the retailer is buying. So it's a little multi-layered. So I think the consumer wholesaler picks it up from the mandi, and then from there the retailers buy. So we monitor that. We also monitor the mandi prices. We also monitor what is happening overseas, because we have to tweak the import and export regime. So a lot of monitoring is happening every day.
So you are India's only primary source of inflation data that all agencies are relying on?
I would like to believe so.
Wow, that's wonderful. And how often do you upgrade the system? These 550 touch points, is this the current number? Have more touch points been added?
No, so as I mentioned in the beginning, it used to be 170 about 2 years back.
Okay.
And then we realized that unless we collect from all corners of the country, it is not a good reflection of the reality. So from 170 2 years back, it's now 550.
So it's safe to assume that we have a more accurate indicator
Yes.
of inflation
Yeah.
right now than what we probably did
Right.
2 years ago.
So it's, it and also depends on specific commodity. For example, the price of, we also do all India averages, and we realize that just the arithmetic average may not be a good thing to report. I'll give you an example. For example, the mustard oil price in Kolkata and mustard oil price in Kochi in Kerala can be different by 150%, because in Kerala it's being used for massage, while in Kolkata it's being used for food. So if you just do an arithmetic averaging, the picture gets skewed. So we have an extrapolation in terms of the consumption pattern across the country, and we do that weighted kind of an average to get a better picture of the reality of the prevailing prices.
Fascinating. So what is the structure for inflation management? I mean, what are the stakeholders that are involved in this whole process?
So it might be a little boring because I'm going to tell you what I do throughout the day. But so we monitor this every day. And every Tuesday, we sit with the representatives of agriculture, the analysts, the trade, and we see how the prices have behaved over the week at various points in the country, how the trade is looking at it, how the producers are looking at it. And then every Wednesday at 5 p.m., we have something called the Interministerial Committee, 4 of us secretaries, agriculture, food, consumer affairs and commerce, and also revenue, because the import-export thing is with them. We sit and we analyze the patterns. And any of us, since we represent different constituencies, if they want an intervention, so intervention is also the level of competence, the structure is decided. Some decisions this committee can take. If there is a higher order intervention, we go to a committee headed by Cabinet Secretary. It's called a COS. And then there is a group of ministers called now the Committee of Ministers, headed by Honorable Home Minister, which has Finance Minister, our Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Mr. Gadkari, and the Agriculture Minister as members. So it meets almost once a month. And if there is a higher order intervention in terms of, let's say, we want to put a ban is a bad word, on export of a commodity, then it goes there. But it's all data driven. It's driven by evidence. And I know many of us leaning on the liberal economist side would think that government should not be in the business of price controls and actually in the business of doing business. But I would advise you to read a German lady economist, Isabella Weber, who wrote an op-ed in Guardian in 2021, and she said that strategic price control by the government is the most effective way to control inflation. She was abused by fellow economists that time, and she said that's the worst op-ed anybody has written. But now she's a much respected professor at the University of Amherst. She also advises the government of Germany. So my point is that strategic price control, when onion prices were very high, we decided to intervene in retail and sell it at 25 rupees. We did make some losses, but the way we were able to nudge the market, it really worked.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with tomatoes.
Yes.
When in August, the newspapers were printing front page pictures of the tomato dairies of saying 250 rupees or whatever. We said, okay, let's pick it up from the places where it could be sourced. And we deployed thousands of mobile vans and other retail points. And we started selling at 90. Then next week, 80, 70. And we could see that we were nudging the market in the right direction. And of course, there were many other variables at play, and it did work.
Okay.
So the final point I want to make is prices, especially of commodities, are not just a function of supply and demand. There's a lot of messaging involved. There's a lot of nudging involved with players like government can do to help move the market in a positive way. When I say
Right.
positive, from the consumer point of view.
Sure, sure. So, so talking about the price control measures, there was some controversy around it. You're right. There's a certain group of economists that said that the government should not be in the business of controlling prices. So I want to understand from you, what was the whole thinking behind the import bans that we saw, whether it's dal, whether it is, tomatoes? What was the government's thinking? Because the farmers, when we spoke to them, they were saying that this was their time to book profits, and the government came in and spoiled their party.
So I want to challenge that argument.
Okay.
And it's not the farmer who was making the profit. It was the trader who was the intermediary, or if I may use a bad word, the middleman, who was making a killing. And if you're talking of onions, what we did, and we still do, when we banned the export of onions because the international price arbitrage was very high and there was a lot of onions flowing out of the country, we said that, okay, if a farmer wants to sell, I'm willing to buy it 21 to 24 rupees, depending on, we have a formula. But, so even in the IMC, the committee, the agriculture secretary is always, wanting to protect the interest of the farmer, which is a 13 crore, 14 crore constituency. And we are willing, our objective is to look at the prices for the consumer. So we said that just because some traders want to make a killing and take advantage of this difference between prices in Bangladesh and prices in India, we can't let a lot of onions flow out of the country. By the way, Turkey, Egypt, and many other countries that produce onions of the type that we eat with a lot of pungents, they've all banned exports. Pakistan did not, and I have a report in my phone from the Dawn, this published in Karachi 3 days back.
Yeah.
Onion prices in Pakistan 3 days back were 240 rupees a kg, of course, in their currency. And now they are, of course, abusing India and now going to ban exports. So the whole idea is to preempt, to take action in advance. Because in commodities, if you delay your decision, even by a couple of days,
right,
you're dead.
Yeah.
So we need to act promptly. And I think this three-layered structure of the interministerial committee comprising the secretaries, then the committee of secretaries headed by the cabinet secretary, and the group of ministers headed by Honorable Home Minister. Sometimes this can work in a night, all three layers. Because
really? So the permissions, you have to take approvals from different...
Yes.
And when you decided to ban the ban exports and increase imports of tur dal and so on, how quick was the process? Take us through that.
So it's very quick. We look at the data. Of course, we have to present the evidence before the respective committees. So you present it to the group of ministers that compared to the same period last year, this year export is 170% of that, and it is flowing. The production is not as good, and the rabi sowing may have challenges because of El Nino and other effects. So you have to plan in perspective. Because you have to see what is going to happen 3 months from now. And I didn't tell about that, but since I'm sitting here, let me flaunt that a bit. We also do predictive analysis. We have algorithms that can predict the prices of at least the 8 major commodities 30 days from now, 45 days from now, and 60 days from now. Of course, based on legacy data. So we have this rich base of data through which we predict. And since we've been using it now, this algorithm for last about a year, we've now realized that root mean square error is now converging to a very low number. That means we are able to predict that onion prices in Lasalgaon will be X plus minus a small delta 30 days from now. And that works.
So it's worked. It's worked so far.
More or less.
So, is there a difference in your strategy between, say, commodities and perishables?
Of course. Very good question. So the way we handle pulses, cereals, and staple, that's different. But when it comes to onions, tomatoes, it's perishable, it's fast-moving, and there are storage issues, and there are, let's take tomatoes. Tomato, across India, they produce at different times, different geographies have different harvest periods. Pickings are multiple somewhere pickings are just 2. So you have to analyze that. Like the biggest mandis are Kolar and Madanapalli in Andhra Pradesh. And then you realize that if that is falling short, what about Shahjapur in Indore and Alwar in Rajasthan, and how will the Azadpur Mandi in Delhi will get? So sometimes if market is not letting it happen because there are vested interests who want to increase the prices, we step in through our agencies like NAFED, NCCF, and we say you procure from the low price regions, and we are willing to support you and increase the availability in the market. So I think the two fundamental principles that we work on is availability and affordability. And if you're able to manage the two in an optimal manner, I think food inflation can be managed well.
So we're living in the times of Atmanirbharta. Atmanirbhar Bharat is our goal right now. How do you, as someone who's at the forefront of driving policy when it comes to managing food inflation, so how do you balance Atmanirbharta and global supply chains?
Very good question. So let's take pulses. India produces 275 to 280 lakh tons of pulses every year, and we also consume a similar number. But the composition within that pulse basket, like 50% of it is chana, but we don't consume it that much. So the difference between what we consume and what we produce in tur dal, in moong dal, in urad dal, so there is a gap. So of course, I'll give you an example. For arhar or tur dal, we consume 44 lakh tons, but we produce only 35. So where is this gap of 9 going to come from? So there are two geographies. Some comes from Myanmar, some comes from East African countries. So we have to watch the production numbers in Myanmar and East Africa, because we have to get it from there. Otherwise, prices will shoot up here. So in terms of the aggregate Atmanirbharta in pulses, it's already there. But if you see the components, we are still dependent. So, for example, in urad, which is black matpe, we are totally dependent on Myanmar. Our requirement of 8 to 9 lakh tons comes from Myanmar. But Myanmar can be a volatile geography. So we realize that we have to diversify our risk. So we are in strong talks with Brazil and Argentina, because agroclimatically they can produce these pulses. And I'm very happy.
Why can't we do that in India?
Oh, we do that, but India, the geography is limited. So the farmer has a choice that he or she can, switch to another crop which is more paying. So we have seen a lot of it happening. It's changing from pulses to cotton and soya bean, and it changes every year. So because we have limited geography, and the income levels are growing, people are consuming more protein, the pulse consumption is going up. So we need, every country needs import,
so you're in talks with Brazil right now?
So I'm very happy to report that already 3,000 tons this year we got from Brazil. It's a good start, small number, but it's a good start. So our dependence on one geography, we are diversifying, mitigating that risk.
Reduces. You've also launched a whole host of brands in the last 1 year, whether it's Bharat Atta, Bharat Rice, and so on. What's the thought process behind it? Because this is a government that said it should be minimum government, maximum governance. But now we are also eating government-owned brands, ka atta and chawal and all of that. So just explain the whole thought process and philosophy behind this.
So I think it's part of maximum governance only, not government.
Okay.
Because you see, last year we had robust chana crop, so we have 40 lakh tons in our buffer. So what do? You can pump it into the market. It also gets spoiled after a while. So you can do it in wholesale. You can do it in retail. If you do it in wholesale, what do? You do OMSs, open market auctions, through NAFED or whatever agency you have. But the guy who's bidding in the wholesale, now you are at his or her mercy, because he may choose not to sell it. He can, have it in no stock. Of course, there's cost of holding a commodity. So we decided that let's intervene in retail. And through our agency, we have a good cooperative system, NAFED, NCCF, then the state government agencies of Maharashtra, Gujarat, and other. So we incorporated them into our system, and we created a layered structure, and we said, out of this 40 lakh tons, let's try with 5 lakh tons and sell this in market at a rate which is at a little differential from the market rate, and let's see how the market behaves. And then we realized, of course, we do a concurrent evaluation also, whether it's working or not. We've now realized that retail intervention works much better than wholesale intervention. In wholesale intervention, you're still at the mercy of the middleman. So a good solution is a hybrid. You do retail intervention also and wholesale intervention also. And we have seen that by selling Bharat Dal at 60 rupees, the market price has really moved. The gap has narrowed.
And how are you ensuring quality checks for that?
So quality check is when it is procured, it has to be as per norms. We call it FAQ, fair average quality, in terms of the content of the moisture. And when the agencies take it from us and then they get it milled, and then when they pack it in 1 kg or 30 kg packs or 5 kg packs, then they also have to ensure quality. And by the way, this is being sold in normal retail, right from our mobile vans to Reliance stores to the D-Marts or whatever have you.
You manage the distribution.
Yes, and I am very happy to report that the December chana dal sale in the country, Bharat Dal's contribution was 25%. We've captured. And
okay, that is brilliant. that's quite something.
This is not by force, because you're giving a choice. So if you go
without aggressive advertising, because
without aggressive advertising.
How many of you are familiar with Bharat Dal? Nobody. Okay. We have a few people.
So I'll just give you the last sentence that in a Reliance store, you will see a Bharat Dal with huge 60 rupees written on the cover itself, sitting next to the other dal, and people are buying that dal. So if there were concerns on quality, they would not touch that. And we are talking of, middle class.
But I wonder what FMCG companies have to say. I believe we have some FMCG players here also. So you're introducing more competition in the market,
which is good.
Which is good for the consumer. Yes, absolutely. So I also want to talk to you about several measures that the Consumer Affairs Ministry has taken to empower the consumer, and the regulations that you're coming out. What's in the anvil? What can we expect going forward? What can industry expect when it comes to tighter regulations?
So, this whole thing of ease of doing business, we are totally for it because it's government's mandate. But when you facilitate business towards, easier systems and let's call it decriminalization and easing of the way of doing business, you also have to ensure that consumers' rights are being adequately protected. And I'll give you an example. When we were buying from corner stores, from mom and pop shops, the Kirana store, there was a relationship between the buyer and the seller.
Right.
He knew your chachas and uncles and aunties, and if something went wrong, he would be willing to replace it. Now, both with the brick and mortar malls and these huge e-commerce stores, the power equation between the buyer and the seller has become really skewed. The buyer is a small fellow, and the sellers are these huge mega malls and these e-commerce stores. So now it is more and more upon us to develop systems so that the consumer is not taken for a ride, unless you are Uber and Ola, of course. Then what do? So right from when you go to an e-commerce site, right from the search algorithm, which has to be fair, I don't know, 1 year back we were really worried, so I sat with my minister and said, Sir, aap bhi search karo. We searched for product X on our respective phones, and product X and product Y, we're sitting together, and first 10 results, and I can name the company in Amazon, were all from Cloudtail.
Yeah.
So all this talk about, this e-commerce platform empowering the chota seller,
right,
is all, you can see the proof of the pudding is there. So we said, you can't that, because if my product is going to be listed at 193, no consumer is going to buy that, number one. Number two, when you're buying on a platform, you're not looking at the seller. You're just looking at the credentials of the platform. You see, those reviews, you see those 4.5 stars, and you think, yeah, it's a good product, maybe I'll buy it. You don't know who the seller is. But who is going to authenticate those stars? So we developed standards in BIS for systems to manage fake reviews. And next month, we are toying with the idea of making it compulsory that all e-commerce websites should have systems where they manage fake reviews. Third and most important, last month, we issued guidelines for dark patterns. Now, what are dark patterns? Dark patterns are manipulative practices deployed by e-commerce platforms to manipulate the consumer behavior. You are being nudged in a direction where you don't want to go. Basket sneaking. You buy something of 5,000 rupees. When you're checking out, you see 5 rupees added. Being human. Some insurance, some donation. You didn't ask for it.
That's right.
Of course, if you want, you can do it. Airline ticket. You're buying the ticket, travel insurance is added automatically. So we are saying, please don't add it. This is, if you want to subscribe to a service, 1 click. If you want to unsubscribe, 13 clicks. They will not let you out. So these are all, you know, for a person, sometimes you say, "Arey, chodo yaar, rehne do, har mahine credit card se chala jayega." But why?
Correct.
You know, who will protect?
Yeah.
And then misleading advertisements. I was just telling your colleague that the largest shirt manufacturer in India advertised that if you wear my shirt, you will not get COVID. मैंने कहा, भाई, what is this? Everybody's words, #1 toothpaste. IS coaching centers. Coaching centers started in 2015. You are putting the picture of a guy who became IS in 2001. अरे भाई, तुम्हारा center ही नहीं खुला था.
Have you seen 12th fail?
I have seen 12th fail.
Yes.
We have seen 12th. So it's all happening, but greenwashing. Everybody, consumers like all of us, are willing to pay a premium for green products.
Yeah.
We all care for the environment. But greenwashing is a new phenomenon where people are advertising, putting all those green dots and doing, putting stuff in the recycled packages. Yeah. But the product is actually not green.
You've done a research on this.
Yes. So I am coming up with guidelines. The guidelines are ready with industry consultation. We're coming up with guidelines next fortnight that this is greenwashing. Please do not fool the consumer. Because consumer is paying 1.2 to 1.5 times extra because he or she thinks it's a green product.
Right.
But the product is not green.
So is this only for detergents you're doing, or you're also going to look at food products?
Greenwashing is a term it's used for everything.
Okay. Okay. So food products as well, for everything you're coming up with guidelines.
I'll tell you a little 15-second anecdote where it terms emanated from, and we have all faced. So there was a guy, American guy, who went to a hotel in Fiji, and it said that if you don't ask your towels to be washed every day, that means you're saving the planet. You're not. So it all started there. So he coined the term greenwashing because hotels were making a fool of the customers, saying that if you don't want your chaddar changed or towel washed, you're saving them. You're not saving the environment. That is where it all started. It's a way to fool. So you go to any 5-star hotel, they will have these little signs where they're asking you, not to rattle their balance sheet by asking you to do little things. It's not fair. Yeah. It should be the choice, and you're nudging him in that direction.
Yeah.
So that's not fair.
They're almost, I think, there is a bit of a moral lecturing there also.
Yes.
That if you do this, you're wasting resources.
Moral lecturing, and then, just 2 left, gone. So I don't know what's the name of the site. It's a copy of the US, the price is right. Some Tol Mol Ke Bol or some
Groupon, no.
Something which comes on television, and every day it will play that this is the last sari and the 200 rupees, buy it. And then we send the notice to the company, and we realized that it was a recorded thing. So every day the same thing video was being played.
Wow.
And how can you say every day just last piece, 2 pieces left, gone. I think it was Tol Mol or some Nap Tol or something like that. So we feel like we find them 10 lakhs of rupees, and they stopped it.
Thank you. I think that's.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Let's hear it for Mr. Singh.
Thank you.
It's one last question.
Of course.
What's the comfortable level of inflation for the ministry that you're working with?
I have no number in mind, but I'll tell you so inflation numbers. I mean, all the great economists are sitting here. Numbers can be very tricky, difficult to understand. कल के अखबार में I read कि ये बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है, 5 point something 6. I don't know what the number was, and I realized कि मेरी prices तो कम हो रही हैं, तो ये बढ़ कैसे रहा है? And then I have the table if you want proof that prices are coming down of my commodities. And we are 45% of the CPI. And then you realize, no, this is December on December. So there's no logic of December on December. And you tell me December over November, November over October. So I don't know what happened last December. So don't put it on the front page of all newspapers that, year on year, December, it is this much. No, it's an incorrect way of representing. And I also am meeting the governor on next Tuesday. We do engage with RBI very closely because, as sir was saying, the decision by MPC on the interest rates is heavily dependent on the food inflation numbers.
Right.
So we do engage with the MPC a lot. Me and my team sitting here, we engage with them every month. And so we say that because, they once told us in September that, Rohit, your onion price is going to be 100. Be careful. We said, no, we'll not let it go beyond 65, 70. And it didn't go.
So are we with elections coming? Any red flags you've been asked to watch out for?
Nothing to do with elections. It's pure. It's only consumer prices.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Singh.
welcome.
It's been our honor and privilege to have you here and discuss in such great detail about how India manages its inflation. I think it's been a bit of a primer for all of us. Thank you very much. And we wish you the very best. We do hope that you keep empowering the consumers and keep sending out those notices against dark practices.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Please stay back for a photograph.